Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we have the brand new Tier 9 Australian light cruiser, the Hector, import to review for you guys today. Massive shout out to this channel's Patreons for making this review and all ship reviews on this channel possible. I am not a CC, nor supported by, nor affiliated with Wargaming in any way, shape, or form. So these guys make these reviews entirely possible. Patreon is the best place to support the channel, besides just watching the videos and streams. And as always, art department, you guys are absolutely knocking it out of the park here. The ship looks beautiful, lots of small details all over the ship, and the camo looks great as well. So the Hector, this has been described to us as a bigger Dido. Certainly has the same guns as the Dido. We'll get more into that in a second. But something more of them strapped everywhere, and I do mean literally everywhere. Look at this setup here in the front. Such a wonky setup, similar to the Colbert's setup. A ship that I still don't have at this point. That's my Discord and not yours. So let's go ahead, take a look at the Hector, go over her features, her armor, and her stats, and all that jazz right now. Alright, so let's start with, oh, by the way, how do you get this ship? This is a Research Bureau ship. She cost 46,000 Research Bureau points. She is a Tier 9, so she doesn't cost quite as much as the Tier 10 ships. That will require you to set, I believe, 4 lines with the double Research Bureau point boost you get when that resets. So it is a bit of a commitment to get this ship, bit of a steep price, either a lot of time or a couple $100 worth of converting RP. I'm sorry, RP. What is this, War Thunder? Of converting XP to free XP. So let's begin with the ship. Economic bonuses, by the way, besides the ones that I have on it, I do have the bonus package and get a 10% boost to your credits, 100% to your ship XP, commander XP, and your free XP. And this is a Tier 9 premium ship, so she does get that baked in Tier 9 economy as well. And I don't think there is an alternative for her camo yet. Oh, there is. Okay, so you have this or that. I like the default one better. Okay, now let's take a look at her armor. It's a light cruiser. What did you expect? 16mm bow, 16mm bow deck. Stern deck is 16 as well. You have what would we call this? Well, you have a transitory deck, transitioning from the stern to the mid deck, of 27mm. Mid deck is 51. And then her main armor belt is 114, and that is her citadel right there. You have 114mm plating above it. Her citadel, by the way, is quite large. We did play this ship on stream last night, so I do have a fair amount of experience in this ship already. So you have a 76mm top over here by the turrets, 51mm by the conning tower, and then 16mm by the rest of the superstructure. Then 76mm by the rear turrets. Lots of citadel there. Okay. I did remove, as I'm sure you guys saw when I clicked on the equipment tab there, all of the modules and commanders have been removed from the ship, so this is completely stock at the moment. Hit points, 34,400 hit points, 4% torpedo damage reduction. Artillery, she has 14 133mm guns. This is the camera not wanting to work. That's great. Quite a lot of firepower here. They reload in 6.7 seconds base. They 180 in 9 seconds. Maximum dispersion of 140 meters. And a maximum range of 15.6 kilometers. The HE does a maximum damage of 1900. You have an 8% chance of causing a fire on the target per shell. 22mm of HE pin. And an initial velocity of 792 meters a second. The AP does a maximum damage of 2,550 and an initial velocity of 792 meters a second as well. And they are, of course, in this unusual configuration. This guy I don't believe this guy 360s, but this turret does back here, and I don't think either of these do from what I recall playing. These two don't either. I believe it's just turret number, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, turret number 7 in the back does 360. So yeah, you do have this very unconventional setup. We'll talk more about that in the gameplay portion, but yeah, this is actually pretty usable because you can get all these guys on target when you're just facing forward like that, and that's 8 guns on target right there. That's pretty nice. The 15.6 kilometer range, again, we'll talk more about that in the gameplay section. Torpedoes, you do have 16 of the 533 millimeter torps. They're mounted here and here. You can single drop these as well, or a very wide drop. They reload in 96 seconds. They have a 10 kilometer range, 16,767 alpha damage. They travel at 62 knots, and they're detected by 1.3 kilometers. Depth charges, she does get the depth charges that get launched off of her stern. So no depth charge aircraft for you. 5,000 maximum damage, 2 charges, 8 bombs per charge. They recharge in 40 seconds. AH has an rating of 67, which is kind of odd because all of these 133mm guns are dual purpose, so that's a lot of firepower, but apparently it's not. So you get, of course, the main guns as dual purpose. You get 16 of the 40mm Vickers, then you get 8 of the single-mounted 40mm guns, then 8 of the dual-mounted 20mm Oerlikons. Maneuverability, top speed of 34.0 knots, a rudder shift time of 9 second space, and a turning circle radius of 760 meters. That's again my Discord, not yours. I thought I muted that. Concealment is 11.6 kilometers base. Alright, so for her consumables, you get a crawling smoke screen that lasts for 90 seconds and a dispersion time of 10 seconds. You get a radius of 0.45 kilometers, a reload time of 160 seconds, and 3 charges of that base. Short range hydro or DFA awaits you in the next slot. I took the hydro because the A is down to 67. It's already not that great. Of course, when this is going, it helps a bit. Well, it helps a lot. But hydro's so much more utility there, and I think that was the better choice for the night. You get a normal repair party, 172 HP regenerated per second for 28 seconds, reloads in 80 seconds, 3 charges. I know a normal repair party in a ship that looks like it's made out of explodium. And of course you get a damage con, 5-second action time, and a 60-second reload time. I'm going to go ahead and throw my commander module build back on this ship. I'll meet you guys right here, right after that. Alright, starting with the commander build. So I went with Last Stand because the light cruiser, stuff's going to get knocked out a lot. Then I went with Demolition Expert to get that 1% increase to our fire chance. Then for the third tier of commander skills, I went with the Superintendent first to give them the charge of the heal. Then I went with Adrenaline Rush to get that boost to the DPM when you take some damage. Then I would go with Survivability Expert to get that boost to your HP. Then Heavy HE and SAP to get that straight up 10% boost to your HE shell damage. And since these guns are, what are they, 120 or 133s? They're not, 133, so not 149. So there you go, that's just outright more damage. And then Concealment Expert. IFHE. I had a debate about this with chat. The general consensus was don't worry about taking it. And it's understandable why. You only get up to 27 millimeters, which is okay. You can pin the bows of most cruisers that you can see now, but it cuts your fire chance in half. And with the amount of guns that this thing has, and with how high you can get the fire chance, you're kind of, stabbing yourself in the femoral artery there, if you will, if you take that. But sure, you can argue convincingly so for it, but I didn't, and, well, we'll talk about how the ship performed in a minute. For the equipment, I went with Main Armaments Mod 1 because I took one look at this thing, I saw the turrets on, and I thought, oh, those are going to get knocked out, so we need to have this. So this gives a 20% boost to the chance of the main battery guns becoming incapacitated, a 50% boost to the main battery survivability, and then a 20% boost to the repair time. Same for the torpedoes. For the engine room protection, This gives us a 20% boost to the chance of it becoming incapacitated, or I guess the chance of it not becoming incapacitated. And a 20% boost to the repair time, same for the steering gears. Again, light cruiser, it's going to get knocked out. That's why I took it. Aiming System Mod 1 to get the dispersion down by a nice 7%. It also increases the torpedo tube's traverse speed by 20% and the firing range of the secondary batteries by 5% along with the dispersion, although there's no secondaries on the ship, and that's not why I took it anyway. Just wanted the main battery dispersion. I took the steering gears mod 1 to get the steering gear, the rudder shift time down a bit more because, well, we're in a light cruiser and we need to be able to dance. Concealment for a 10% boost to the concealment, and then main battery mod 3 for a 12% boost to the reload time. You might be thinking, well, Sealord, it only has a 15-kilometer range. These are those shells, all right? We don't want to worry about an 18-kilometer range and then a 2-year flight time for the shells to get to the target. Forgot to throw the flags back on. Let me just go ahead and do that right here. And, yep, those are the flags that I was running. So now, for the survivability, we now have 38,450 HP. For the guns, we have a 5.9 second reload time and a 15.6 kilometer range with a 10.3 seconds 180 time for the guns. The HE shells now do 2,090 maximum damage, and we have a 10% chance of causing a fire with these 14 guns every 5.9 seconds. For the maneuverability, the rudder now shifts in 7.2 seconds. With the speed flag on, we go 35.7 knots. And for the concealment, it's now down to a very nice 9.4 kilometers. So that's the build I was running on the ship that I was playing on stream tonight and for the few games after. So we will transition over to a gameplay review where I will meet you guys right there. Alright guys, voice over Mountbatten here. And the Hector. Well, this is a ship that I thought I wasn't going to be able to perform as well as I did in. Now, like I've said in my Yoda review, or Yoda as it's been christened, I'm not the best light cruiser player. The reason I found myself doing well in the IJN light cruisers is that they honestly play like heavy cruisers. They have long range, large amount of guns that lead to high alpha, so they again pretty much play like heavy cruisers, except you have no armor. The Hector is certainly more along the lines of a more traditional light cruiser, albeit with a non-traditional gun layout. Yet, I found myself doing fine with it. Now, was I doing tremendously well? No, not really. But I was doing fine. However, the Hector is very situational. She has a very interesting playstyle with the consumables and characteristics that she has. And I think there's certain things that could have been improved upon this ship. But at the end of the day, I'd be lying to you if I told you I wasn't doing okay for most of the usual games that I had. I did take her into Airship Escort, which didn't really go that well. She doesn't really have the armor or the survivability to stay and fight like you do usually have to do in Airship Escort. Of course, there's still players that play it like random team deathmatch, so sure, it could do fine there, but in most of the Airship Escort games that I had in the ship on stream, didn't really do that well. But in a usual random battle setting, she was doing quite well for a light cruiser. I'm sure in the hands of a more capable light cruiser captain, she could perform quite decently good, if you will. So, we're going to run through her stats now that I've already played this ship beforehand, but like we do normally in this portion of the video, we're going to go through her stats and talk about what those are like in game. So survivability, surprisingly survivable. It's not quite like the Royal Navy light cruisers where with something with big guns kind of looks at you, half your health is just gone. At least it didn't happen to me. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you you can tank Shikishima shells with it, because you can't. I did find myself receiving a fair few overpins where I thought I for sure was going to get slapped. At the same time, too, don't get me wrong, I had many a moment where I had most of my health and then I didn't. It's a light cruiser. It's, a Royal Navy light cruiser, even though it has got the Australian flag on it. It does explode at times, but not as much as I thought it was going to. There is a lot to be had here with certainly its maneuverability. It does feel a little bit sluggish, so I couldn't quite confidently, whip it around, get angled, or, get thin towards the shells coming at me like you normally could in most other light cruisers. That being said, it is a fairly wide build. Of course, you got to fit 2 turrets side by side up there on the front, but again, not quite made out of explodium, but a light cruiser at the end of the day, but it doesn't explode too much. Now for the artillery, the guns. So one thing that I noticed and that I was sure was going to be brought up during the stream is the range, 15 kilometers. That doesn't sound like a lot, and at tier 9 it isn't really a lot. However, what does help this out is 2 things. One, you get your crawling smokescreen. That helps out quite a bit. 2, with a full build, you do have a sub 10 kilometer concealment. Which means that, with a 9.4 kilometer concealment, you can get a little bit closer to the enemy team than one normally would in a, normal cruiser. Of course, too, that involves getting close in today's meta, which isn't always that easy. Now, what I wound up doing is that I was using island cover more than anything. The guns have quite an arc to them, as, one might imagine. So when you can get an island between you and the enemy ship, you can just keep docking them down from the safety of the island. If there's no radar around, you of course can also use the smoke screen to your advantage and get a little bit closer and get docking them down. So I didn't find that to be a huge issue, and honestly at 18 kilometers with the flight times that these shells do have, they definitely don't have any improved ballistic characteristics from what I've seen. You're going to be waiting for a hot minute for them to get there, so I have no desire to push it out to 18 kilometers once I actually got a feel for these shells. The reload time seems to be pretty good with the reload module on. It is 5.9 seconds, so pretty much 6 seconds. With this 14 guns, that's plenty of shells going down range. And of course, with Adrenaline Rush, you can get that down, and will get that down in some situations a bit further. Now, the HE, it can only pin 22 millimeters of armor, which basically means when you're fighting battleships at tier 9 and tier 10 superstructure. And unless you come across, 1 or 2, not even then, I think just 1 battle cruiser. Actually, no, not even at tier 9, because I don't think you can see that one. No, you can't see the tier 7 battle cruisers at tier 9. So unless you come across those, you're going to be stuck with just farming down the superstructure for the pin damage. However, the fire chance for this thing seems to be pretty darn good. Now, I've had many a light cruiser in the past, which, sets me on fire every other salvo. Not really do that when I'm playing that cruiser. This one certainly seems to do so. However, of course, that's RNG. At the end of the day, you might get blessed. You might get a bagillion fires one game. You might get 2 fires the next game. So a lot of the damage is dependent upon that fire RNG, which is why I would recommend building into the fire chance. We have a 10% fire chance per shell with 14 shells, leaving your guns every 6 seconds. Mathematically, the odds are very much in your favor, but of course, as we all know with this game, that's not an assurance. But if you do take IFHE, you're still only pinning 27 millimeters, which, again, at higher tier, it's not 32, so it's not like you're going to be able to farm down every ship that you see. Again, most large cruisers and most cruisers you will see that will take care of that, but if you don't, yeah. And again, then you're trading off the fire chance, so with the fire chance build, I was doing alright in this ship. Against DDs, of course, 14 guns are going to be quite fearsome, and it was pretty good at dealing with DDs. From closer ranges, the ballistics are much better and much more comfortable to fire, so if you're within 10-12 kilometers of a DD, you should be able to put the hurt on them pretty well. The AP, I didn't really use the AP that much. Again, these are relatively small guns against maybe another light cruiser. So, yeah, sure, I switched to AP, but I'm mostly stuck with HE for this Knights. The gun angles are not great, by the way. You do have to show a very uncomfortable amount of side to get them off. Granted, again, with being a light cruiser, being so thinly armored, it probably really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but you still do have to show an uncomfortable amount of broadside to get all those guns off from the rear. From the front, you can just go straight bow on and give them the 8 guns in the front. That is what's really nice about that layout, and that's still quite a bit of fire going down range. But if you want to bring those last 3 turrets into the fight, got to show a little bit of ankle to do that. Alright, for the torpedoes, 10 kilometer torps with the single drops. 10 kilometers may not sound like a lot, but it's a pretty fair distance to be able to just spew 16 torps in a general direction of. And what's very weird is that you have the single drop, which is, very thin, and then you have like a mega wide drop for some reason. Yeah, for aerial denial, sure, it's great for that. 10 kilometers, someone's pushing into you from 11 kilometers away and they're going full tilt. They'll definitely get into your torpedo range if you drop them. They're really nice. I didn't have too much success with them, but again, for what they are very nice. I'm not really a torpedo master or anything like that. AA, like I said, it's really mediocre. It's odd for a ship with this many guns to have mediocre AA, but it is what it is. AA is AA anyway nowadays, but I mean it's lackluster AA for tier 8. Maneuverability, kind of already touched on that. The rotor shift time 7.2 seconds. It feels pretty nice, but then again, it's just like it feels really sluggish for being a light cruiser. Again, with the ship being wider, that of course does mess with the the dynamics of the ship and such. So I can't understand that. She's also not that fast either. 35 knots isn't particularly fast for a tier 9 cruiser. So it's like just within the parameters to where you can wiggle around enough to avoid most of the shells that are going to be thrown at you. But it's not like amazing either. So it's kind of meh in my opinion. For the concealment's very nice, 9.4 kilometer concealment. That is going to allow you to play this ship and play this ship effectively. I would say a concealment build is a must-have on this ship with both the module and the commander skill. That's going to allow you to get close, get in, get your damage, and be able to just rack the guns and go quiet when you need to. As far as the modules go, the heal, again, normal heal. It's it's a normal heal. Thank God it doesn't get quite as vibe checked as the Minotaur, because if it did, and it had that heal, no. I did run Hydro for most of the night, because the A is already lackluster, and DFA would make it slightly better. Hydro is very, 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 very useful when you're playing this ship, because you have the crawling smoke screen, and having that going while you're in the crawling smoke screen is quite an efficient combo. Can keep your eye out for torpedoes. It is only a 3 kilometer Hydro, but I mean, hey, the ship is maneuverable enough that you should be able to get out of those sticky situations as long as you're paying attention, not just sitting perfectly still and broadside to the enemy team. Overall, what do I think about the Hector? I think that if this was a coal ship or a free XP ship, it wouldn't be terrible, wouldn't be fantastic in my mind. But considering this is a research bureau ship, and you have to reset lines and regrind lines, and that's a pretty daunting task for anybody. So it's either a lot of time or a decent bit of money you have to throw at the game in order to get this ship. So because of that, I would give this ship a 6 out of 10. If it was a coal ship, I'd say a 7 out of 10. Because for a coal ship, for a free ship, it's pretty decent. For a research bureau ship, for the time or money you have to invest to get this ship, it is a little lackluster. Especially considering what we have in the research bureau, the Polo Emilio, the Ohio, so many other ships that are fantastic. The Slava, for example, fantastic ships. But this one's just, So, yeah, for what it is, a 6 out of 10. I wouldn't say it's something you have to drop right now and get, and definitely wouldn't be a first round pickup. The Research Bureau, that would be the Ohio for me. Then I'd say go back in and get like the Slava and then like the Paulo or the Siegfried, and your personal taste takes over from there at that point. So the pros are, it does have, of course, 14 guns that reload in 6 seconds. It does have the unconventional setup in the front where you can get those 8 guns on target. The single drop torpedoes are very nice with a 10-kilometer range, and the crawling smokescreen is a nice help as well. The cons being that despite being a light cruiser that is relatively squishy, she does have a normal heel. And she does, of course, too, only have guns that can pin 22 millimeters of armor. Even if you take IFHE, they can only pin 27. And the rear turret firing angles are, well, not that great. And the AA is definitely lackluster at best for this tier. So, yeah, I mean, again, I did decent in it. But for a research bureau ship, that again, you have to commit quite a bit of time grinding or quite a bit of money getting. Yeah, it's a 6 for me. Again, not terrible, not great, meh. I wish it was better, or at least a coal ship. If it was a coal ship, again, it'd be a 7, but it's not, and it is what it is. So guys, let me know what you guys think about the Hector in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel, or check out Patreon if you want to support the channel there. Thank you guys for the watching, the view time, and the supporting. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.